Well, let's begin tonight in Norway. Obviously, what Norway's going through right now is just awful. People are upset, angry, outraged. Although some people's upset, anger and outrage, at least in this country, extends into areas that may surprise you.
Why is the liberal press playing up the Christian angle in the Norway shooter case?
The mainstream media was quick to paint the Norway terror suspect as a crazy person and a Christian extremist.
They just sort of lay down this narrative every time there's a psycho out there.
He's some fundamentalist Christian. That is not the case absolutely at all.
They quickly label him Christian when there's nothing religious about his approach.
The idea that in any way he represents any mainstream or even fringe sentiment in the Christian community is ridiculous.
Yes. The massacre in Norway is a tragic story about the persecution of Christians. Look, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Laura Ingraham is right. The idea that this killer represents mainstream sentiment in the Christian community is ridiculous. That being said, people drawing the connection between the philosophical underpinnings of his madness to a Christian crusader mentality are not doing it to get at you. The connection stems mostly from two things. The shooter's 1,500-page crucifix-drenched call to reclaim Western Christendom from the infidels, and two, the shooter's Knights Templar 2083 PowerPoint video paying tribute to Christian crusaders from Charles the Hammer to Vlad the Impaler. Now, obviously, I would have more sympathy for the... Obviously, I would have more sympathy for the Fox Rapid Response Team's nuanced concerns if their plea to distinguish violence proclaimed in the name of a religion from the practitioners and tenets of said religion were applied to, let's say, more than just one religion. See, Bill O'Reilly is very clear as to why this Norway killer is not Christian.
Breivik is not a Christian. That's impossible. No one believing in Jesus commits mass murder. There is no evidence this man was a member of a church. No evidence that he had anything to do with the Christian faith. We can find no evidence, none, that this killer practiced Christianity in any way. They call him a Christian because he says he is? Come on.
Come on! And let me say this in defense of Mr. O'Reilly. Isn't it enough for one man to have the burden of determining who amongst us is either pinhead or patriot? But to ask him to also separate Christian from heathen, it's too much of a burden. He's but one very tall man, or, as I'm convinced, a short man on another man's shoulders wearing an oversized suit. My point is this. Clearly, O'Reilly does not believe this killer's actions or profile qualify him as Christian, which I would agree with. But his barrier to entry is somewhat less strict when it comes to linking the Fort Hood maniac and Islam.
I'm saying that he was a Muslim terrorist because he carried a business card that said, "Soldier of Allah." And he committed his crimes in the name of Allah.
See the difference? That guy printed up Soldier of Allah business cards. The other guy only printed up an Army of Christ manifesto. I guess the only connection is both psychos, for some reason, spent the day at Kinko's. You know, I actually feel sorry for the pundits and anchors who have added this story to their file of grievances that are perpetrated against them. Not because I think they are actually victims of persecution, but because I know that the sense of grievance and victimization that appears to pervade their every waking moment is actually something they hate in others.